Hi guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make these flowers here with the beads in the center. So the beads are actually worked right into the flower itself, so you don't need to glue it on or anything like that. It's very easy to get these into the center here. You can see that I did my name with some letter beads on this one. So I have A, S, and H. I hope you can see that okay with the light above, but you can get super creative with the color combos, use different colors of yarn with different colors beads, or use the same color, whatever you would like to do. So the yarn that I used for these flowers here, I have a little bit here, is this Capri Eco cotton yarn. And it's an 85% recycled cotton, 15% polyester yarn. It's a medium 4-weight yarn. And the color on these ones is this one here, pastel pink. And then this one is just a gray color. I don't have the label anymore. So I used cotton for these ones. You can use an acrylic yarn. You can see I made up a couple here. I also have this one here with the pearl bead in the center. So you can use any 4-weight yarn that you would like. I thought the cotton yarn made them look just a little bit cleaner, but I think even the acrylic yarn looks super nice. So again, feel free to use whatever 4-weight yarn that you would like. And as for the beads, I have these letter beads here. I also have these ones that I used in the center of this one. And then I have, I'll get all of this out of the way. I also have this big container here of beads. It's Creatology. I got all of these at Michael's. You can use whatever beads that you would like, as long as, I'll just take one out here to show you, as long as your hook, which I used a 3.75 millimeter crochet hook, as long as your hook fits through the center of the bead, then that bead will work completely fine. So you can use a smaller bead, you can use a larger bead. So these ones are a little bit smaller, but my hook still fit through those. These ones are a little bit bigger, but you can see the opening in the center of the beads is quite wide. So that's what you're looking for, just to make sure that your hook fits through it. And again, I used a 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. You don't even need to use that size hook. You could, in fact, you could use a smaller hook and a smaller yarn size and a super tiny bead and make a very small flower. As long as that hook fits through the bead, then that will work completely fine. You're also going to need a yarn needle to sew in your ends and a pair of scissors. And otherwise, let's get into making these flowers with the beads in the center. All right, to get started, we have our bead here ready to go. We're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. And I'm going to chain 1. And after doing that chain, I'm just going to lift up that loop a little bit and remove my hook. And we want to get the bead on top of our hook at this point. And we want to pull that loop that we just lifted up a little bit through that bead. So to do that, I'm going to insert my hook back into that loop and grab it and just pull it right through that bead. So our bead is on there now. And at this point, we're going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we want to slip stitch to that first chain that we made. So just bringing our hook back here, inserting it into that first chain, and I'm just going to get that tail out of the way. And then we want to do a slip stitch. So we're going to yarn over and pull that yarn through both that first chain and through the loop on our hook for a slip stitch. And then we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, And then we want to find the very first chain after this bead. So to do that, I'm just going to turn the work a little bit here, and it will be that very first chain that's to the left of this bead right here, just the very first one. And we're going to go into that chain with a slip stitch. Going right into that chain and doing a slip stitch. And you can see what we just did made a kind of ring that we're going to work the petals into. So if you pull it apart a little bit, you'll see the space underneath this chain 4, and on this side, the space underneath this chain 4. So we're going to do some petals into this side and some into this side. So starting on our first petal, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to go right into this first chain 4 space, or the space right beneath that chain 4, with 3 triple crochets. So to do a triple crochet, we yarn over 2 times, go right into that opening so that chain 4 is on top of your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through those first 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, and yarn over and pull through those final 2 loops on your hook. And that's a triple crochet. And we want 3 triple crochets in a row. So that was the first one. Again, we do our second triple crochet right into that same space. That's 2. Again, a triple crochet back into that same space. And that's the third triple crochet in a row. We're going to chain 3. And to finish the petal, we're going to slip stitch right back into that same opening. So going right into it, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the loop that's on your hook. And after doing a slip stitch, I like to give the working yarn just a little bit of a tug. You do not have to do that. It just kind of tightens that stitch a little bit. And that's that first petal complete. And we want 3 petals total, all worked into that same space that we just worked the first petal in. So again, going on to the next petal, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, do our 3 triple crochets back into that same space. There's 1, 2, and 3, and to finish the petal, we chain 3 and slip stitch back into that same opening. And it might be getting a little bit snug in there. In fact, it probably will be. So what you can do is, well, I'll start the next petal by chaining 3, and you can kind of push these stitches over if you need a little bit more space. Push them over, and you can see that gave me a little bit more room to work with. So again, I'm going to do my 3 triple crochets back into that same space. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then we chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and slip stitch back into that same opening there. And that is the final petal that we're going to do in that space. So at this point, we're going to start to work our stitches under this chain 4 over here. So we'll start by chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3. And I like to pull this tail up and work the following stitches over top of it as well. And if you look, you can kind of might get a little bit tucked back there, but there's this chain 4 over on this side of the bead that we're going to work into. Don't get confused with that strand of yarn that's sitting on top of the bead back here. We're not going to be working stitches underneath that, just underneath this chain 4 here. And again, I just pull my tail up and work over top of that as well. So we're going to do 2 petals into this side. So again, we do our 3 triple crochets. So go right into that space underneath that chain 4 with the tail on top of my hook as well. Do our 3 triple crochets. There's 1. 2. And 3. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And to finish off this petal, we go right back into that same space with a slip stitch. And we only have to do 1 more petal here, so it should be a little bit easier to get the final petal in. But again, just keep pushing over those stitches if you need to make yourself a little bit of space. So we'll chain 3. In fact, I will do that. Push over those stitches. You can see it gave me a little more room to work with. Still working over top of that tail as well. I'm going to do my 3 triple crochets. 1, 2, and 3, all into that same space. Chain 3, 2 and 3, and slip stitch. And that is the final petal complete. So again, we have those 5, and at this point we can fasten off. So I'm going to chain 1, cut my yarn, pull that yarn through and pull tight, and you can maneuver those petals to your liking, kind of wiggle them around until they're sitting as you like. And you can see there's our little flower with the bead in the center. And we want to sew in our ends at this point. So you can turn your work over here. We have these 2 tails here. We did work over top of this one here, but just to be extra safe, I'll sew it into a couple more stitches here. So I'll get my yarn needle on, and I'm just going to work these tails around the base of these stitches here. So just going through a couple at a time. My needle is a little bit big, so this might be a little tricky for me, but working through a couple at a time, pulling that yarn through. Oops, there we go. Pulling tight, working through a couple more here. And again, just working them through the base of these triple crochets that we did. There we go. And that one will be in good at this point because we also worked over top of them, or over top of it. And at this point, I'm just going to give it a little tug and cut right at the base, and then I can stretch out the work, and that one is hidden. And we'll attach our hook to the second one here. And I'm going to work it in this direction. I don't want to work it in this one and kind of pull that petal away. So if you're looking at the front, you can pull it in a certain direction and see which way you like better. I want it to be going this way to bring that final petal towards the first one. So again, just working around the base of these triple crochets going through a couple at a time and pulling it through, pulling tight, going through a couple more. Ideally, you'd want a smaller needle than the one I'm using, but there we go. Pulling tight. I'll even go through a couple more. There we go. Pull it through and pull tight. And again, just pull on that tail and you can cut it close to the base here and then stretch it out. And there's that second tail hidden. And our little flower here is all complete, and you can sit it in whichever direction that you like, that you think is looking good. And I hope you love your flower. I hope it turned out great. I'll take a moment and ask if you wouldn't mind subscribing. It's greatly appreciated, and liking this tutorial if you found it helpful. But otherwise, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!